Hi everyone, my name is Victoria and this is my puppy Alfie, and we're coming to you from beautiful British Columbia, as you can see here. Um, in my previous videos I've covered the importance of self-attunement as a gateway to the self-love, as well as importance of attunement from an intimate partner when we're looking for such partner. And today, as promised, I'm bringing to you an actual practice for developing self-attunement that can lead to you then being loving yourself and having self-worth and self-esteem that you ultimately are looking for. I imagine that we're all looking for. So today's practice has two parts to it, and you can practice either just part one on its own, it can be very beneficial, or you can combine it with part two and have the full effect. And I'll be very clear where the part one starts and part two begins. So the first part is about turning towards yourself. So we talked about the self-attunement as somebody, if it's coming externally, it's somebody looking at you and wanting to know you. What's happening for you? What's going on? It's this sort of really sense of immersion into you if it's an external attunement. If we're doing an internal attunement towards a self, we pretty much are doing that. We're turning towards ourselves and asking ourselves what's going on. We're seeing ourselves, we're hearing ourselves, we're observing ourselves. And there's two questions that we're going to ask ourselves to do that. The first question that we will ask is just taking a moment, right, for this practice and asking, what am I feeling right now? What emotions am I experiencing? Okay? And we can have more than one emotion at a time. For example, very commonly we might experience anger and guilt. That is totally okay to have two or even sometimes more emotions. And so we just notice what emotion is coming up for us and we name it. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm scared. If you have difficulty differentiating emotions and naming them, you can use like a guide with a list of different emotions. I will link an example of such guide in the description below, and that will help you to identify and begin to expand your emotional vocabulary so that you can do this with ease later on. It can be your guide on this journey. So we're gonna name that emotion. I'm scared, I'm angry, and by just that simple act of naming the emotion or emotions we're experiencing, we are actually emotionally regulating. There's research that shows that when we name the emotion we experience, it lessens. It's not going to completely evaporate or go away, but it becomes less intense. So the naming of emotion like becomes like a container for it. So that's the first question we're going to ask. And then we're going to ask the second question, what sensations in my body are showing up with this emotion, right? And body sensations can vary. We might notice we become more tense, or the opposite, we might feel very relaxed if we experience relaxation, happiness, elation. We might notice our jaw being very tight, or we might experience like a heaviness in the chest or the belly. There's many different emotions. And again, if you're not used to the practice of noticing what emotions are coming up, or even aware of them, I will link down below kind of a little bit of a guide of what sensations in your body you can look for with names for them. So yes, that's the first practice. The first part of this practice is to ask two questions. What emotion or emotions am I experiencing right now? Naming them, and what sensations are accompanying this emotion. Now, I do want to make a quick note here that neither emotions, neither sensations can be bad or good. Because I hear that quite often. something clients mention, I have these negative emotions, I don't want to feel negative emotions. There's no such thing, at least in my view, as a negative emotion. Negative implies that there's something wrong with it. Every emotion and sensation we have is just is. We might experience it as pleasant or unpleasant. For example, joy is pleasant, anger is not a pleasant emotion to experience, but they inherently do not have goodness, negativity, or positivity to them, because this is just a way of your mind and body communicating. It's a way um, for the input from outside telling you about what's going on and how it's affecting you, right? So these are simply ways of communication that our body has and signaling to us. So I did want to highlight that. I feel like that's very important, because we want to, when we're doing this first part of the practice and identifying emotions and sensations, we do not want to judge them. We don't want to bring any form of judgment. Oh, I feel this, I don't want to feel this. As a matter of fact, the opposite. We're practicing the acceptance of what's coming up. I feel anger. I notice my jaw tightening as I feel this anger. It's not bad, it's not good. It might feel unpleasant, but it is what it is that's coming up for me. All right? Okay, so this was the first practice. By practicing just even this part, this will allow you to decrease the intensity of what you experience, enhance sense of self-awareness, and begin turning towards yourself, attuning towards yourself. When you attune, you communicate sense of worth and importance of value for yourself, and thus leading to self-love eventually. All right, now the part two. If you would like to take it further and actually process, maybe you have unpleasant emotions that are coming up. Maybe you feel anger, scared, something happened. Your boss sent you a very unpleasant email, or your partner yelled at you. Something happened and you experience a distressing emotion, and you would like to know what you can do about it. And there's definitely something you can do. So the second part is to actually help us digest or process this emotion. Often what we do when we experience unpleasant emotions, we either just begin to really ruminate in our thoughts, like really mulling it over and analyzing, getting really angry, upset of how dare this, or how this could happen. We create a really deep, intricate stories in our heads, which often really amplify the uncomfortable sensations and emotions. Or um, we might actually turn to numbing it out, or we might actually do both. We might amplify them with thinking about it, and then turn, because it gets so uncomfortable and distressing, we might turn to something that would maybe numb them. So forms of numbing could be, oh, lovely, scrolling on social media. We all do that. I even do that sometimes. We might turn to food, alcohol, computer games. Really, that list can be endless, whatever that drug of choice for you. But this is the alternative. What we can actually do, a very concrete strategy that you can do to digest, to actually release this, so it's not continuing to stress you out, because we all know that even after you've distracted yourself, that thing is in the background. It's going to come out when you try to go to bed, and that's when that flood of thoughts is going to come at you, right? So this is an alternative for what can be done. So once we identified the feelings and sensations, we're going to turn our attention more on the sensations in the body. And there's a few questions we're going to ask. So if you already identified where it is in your body, maybe it's in your chest. I shouldn't touch my microphone. Chest, belly, maybe it's in your jaw. Sometimes it can be all around full body tension, totally possible. Once you identified where it is, we're going to begin to describe it even further. What color does the sensation hold for you? You can assign any color to it. So for example, we might, like if we have attention and joy, we can feel like maybe it's being really red and glowing. Or it could be like a really dark, heavy heavy piece in the chest, like almost black. You can assign any color that feels right to you at that moment to describe the sensation. The second question we're going to ask is, what shape does the sensation has? So it could be like a rock in the stomach, right? Like in the shape of a rock, irregular. It could be a sphere, like a glowing red sphere in your chest. And it could be something that's sort of like an amoeba-like structure in your head. Really, the choice is endless of what kind of shape you can assign it. Then the next question is the kind of texture it would have. So it could be pulsating, it could be constantly moving, it could have like rays coming out of it. Again, your imagination here is as to what feels right to you, is assigning that texture. So now what we have done, we've described it in quite a lot of depth, that sensation. We have spent a little bit of time, maybe a minute or even a couple of minutes, really noticing and observing it. It's actually the opposite of what we tend to do. What we tend to do when we experience anything upsetting or distressing, we tend to really go into our thoughts. We disconnect from our bodies and we mull over, he did say that, I said this, what's going to happen. We really go into the cognition and the thoughts. And what that tends to do is to actually amplify uncomfortable sensations and emotions. They get really amplified to the place where they get intolerable. They get intolerable, and then we turn towards something like a numbing agent of some sort. So what you're going to notice as you're going to do this practice, when you pay really close attention to sensations, counterintuitively, while these sensations might be uncomfortable, they become more tolerable, much more tolerable. It's equivalent to this piece where if you cut yourself, it's unpleasant. Like I'm talking about small cut, nothing drastic. It's unpleasant. It doesn't feel necessarily pleasant. But we don't tend to freak out and come up with really bad narratives about it. We just notice it, maybe disinfect it, and we will move on, right? So the sensation we feel during uncomfortable, stressing emotions is just that. It's like a cut. So when we actually begin describing and noticing what it's like, we begin to become much more tolerable of that. Yes, my puppy decided to explore something there. All right. So that was just a side note. Going back, okay, we've described it, we've given it a color, we've given it a shape, we've given it a texture. And after we've gone through these questions to give depth to the sensations, what we're going to do, we're going to turn our attention to our breathing. What might be helpful is putting both of your hands on your belly and taking a normal, regular breath. You don't need to change anything about your breath. Take a breath in and notice how your belly is rising as you're breathing in. And notice as you exhale how the belly is falling down. And take a second breath, do the same. Notice the rise of the belly. And as you exhale, notice the belly moving down. 2 breaths. Now again, we're going to turn our attention towards the sensation. Let's observe it once again. What's happening with it? Has the color changed? We might experience change in color, in texture, in location of the sensation. Maybe it's moved up from our chest to our throat. The shape might have changed, right? So we're going over these questions once again and noticing any changes. One question that wasn't previously there is the intensity, right? If the location and the color has not changed, has the intensity changed? Sometimes it can even go down. Sometimes it can go up. Sometimes it can go down. There's no right or wrong here. So notice any changes here, just observing. And one more time, shifting your attention to your breathing. Take one breath, notice the belly rising. Exhale, notice the belly falling. One more time. Notice the belly rising as you're breathing in and the belly falling. And again, from here, shifting the attention to that sensation, let's observe it. What has happened to it? What has changed about it? Notice that once again. You're going to notice it shifting, moving, changing, and almost always losing its intensity. And so you turn your attention to your breath again. Take 2 breaths with the same attention and focus to your belly rising and falling. And after 2 breaths, bring your attention back to observing the sensation. Repeat these steps until either the sensation completely dissipated or until it had lessened to the level that you're comfortable with. Sometimes time can be a constraint, so you might not get it down fully to complete 0. And just like that, you've actually digested and processed this emotion. It's no longer becoming a stress in your nervous system. You're also shifting your nervous system from sympathetic, which is the activating kind of nervous system fight flight experience, to parasympathetic, which is the rest, digest, create. So you're actively changed your nervous system as well. And then from that place, from more calm place, we can now turn our attention to resolving perhaps the stressful situation that elicited these uncomfortable, unpleasant sensations and emotions. But now we're doing it from a place of calm. We have access now to the parts of the brain, our frontal lobes, that are responsible for creative problem solving. It's our ability to address whatever station we need to address now is so much more empowering. And we can really tap into all these different ways of looking at station and solving it creatively. So that's it for part 2. I really invite you to experiment with it. It's quite a simple practice. And once you've done it once, it's really easy to do it again and again and help you resolve a lot of uncomfortable sensations and emotions without you actually storing it in the nervous system, carrying it day in and day out. That's it for today. You've got 2 parts to experiment with. You can do part 1 on its own, or you can combine it with part 2. Please leave me a comment below and tell me what was your experience with practicing this, or if you have any additional suggestions of how this practice could be enhanced. Again, my name is Victoria, and it was my pleasure to talk to you. Alfie is saying goodbye here as well, and I look forward to connecting with you next week. My aim is to do these videos every Sunday. I have been sick last couple of weeks, but now I'm making this regular. Have a lovely day and ciao.